A Ghost in the Machine. Chapters 19, 20, and 21. The Silence Before the Trial. Chapter 19. Catherine's jaw was set in a hard line as she was escorted from her temporary quarters through a series of corridors. They had spared her the indignity of manacles, though the 4 armed guards surrounding her more than made up for that. She toyed briefly with attempting to escape right then and there, but quickly dismissed the notion. She was certain that they were hoping she would do just that. It didn't matter what trumped-up charge they were holding her on. Even if it was eventually dismissed, they would still be able to charge her with attempting to escape. The fact that her confinement itself was patently illegal was incidental to that little quirk in the uniform code. One almost had to admire the Kafkaesque touch. She and her escorts halted in front of a nondescript door. 2 more guards were posted there, one of whom punched a button to let the door slide open. None of the others showed any intention to move, but the invitation, if you could call it that, was obvious. Catherine squared her shoulders and stepped inside, as the door closed behind her. The room was Spartan in appearance. A simple table, 2 chairs on opposite sides, a pitcher of water, and 2 glasses. The only thing missing was an obvious 2-way mirror on the wall, since modern surveillance systems made something so archaic unnecessary. She was in an interrogation room. Catherine disdained the chairs, instead choosing to remain standing at parade rest. She was an officer, not a prisoner, and she'd damned well act like it, for as long as she could anyway. Several minutes went by before the door opened once again. Her face betrayed no reaction as Bjarnason entered, walking to the table and taking one of the chairs. "Have a seat, Commander," he said politely. She refused to meet his gaze. Durkana, Catherine J., Commander, Serial Number D, 478-912 KJ, 4403, she recited, without a trace of emotion. It seemed to amuse him. "Now that you have that out of your system, won't you sit down?" Slowly her head swiveled until she stared at him. "I demand to know the charges against me, and I insist on my right to legal counsel." Bjarnason sighed. "I'm afraid neither of those apply since you are not under arrest." Catherine relaxed her stance. She'd made her point. "Funny. It certainly feels like I'm under arrest," she said coldly as she approached the table. "Between the sidearm pointed at my face by Commander Zhukov being locked up, and now this, what would you call it?" "Commander, there are no charges against you, pending or otherwise," he replied. "You are merely being detained temporarily while a security matter is addressed, until a board of inquiry can be convened." "Is that what you call it?" She barked out a short laugh. "Your ability to twist the truth like a pretzel is truly astounding," Catherine said sarcastically, before she suddenly slammed her palms down onto the table, the sound echoing like gunshots in the small room. "Now where the hell is Allie? What have you done with her?" To his credit, the commander didn't flinch. "Interesting," he mused. "Your first thought is to the construct and not Dr. Blois. I find that telling given your recent involvement." "If you think you can embarrass me with that, you're mistaken," she retorted. "Dr. Blois is a grown man and a human being. He is in a far better position to protect himself than Allie is. So I'll ask again, what have you done with her?" The commander merely shrugged. "Allie, as you call it, is in a secure location. As of yet, we have not attempted to dissect its program. I am hoping it will not be necessary." He leaned forward, fixing her with a hard look. "What happens next is entirely up to you." "And just what is that supposed to mean?" she shot back. "Commander, if you wish to discuss the matter like an adult, then take a seat. If not, you will be escorted back to your quarters." Bjarnason gave her a pitying gaze. "And any hope you may have for protecting the construct goes right out the airlock." The implied threat brought her up short. Grudgingly, she slowly sat down. "What is there to talk about?" she said hotly. "You're going to do whatever you want regardless of what I say." He absent-mindedly drummed his fingers on the table. "I won't lie to you, Commander. There are a number of people that think the construct should be terminated immediately, that allowing it continued existence poses too great a risk. I, on the other hand, would like to believe there's another option, that it could prove to be quite useful to the Alliance as long as proper protocols are observed." "Protocols," she said flatly. "What you really mean is chains, shackles, bars. You want to keep her locked up and crippled, until you have a job for her. Isn't that right? Catherine snarled in sudden fury. We did everything you asked us to do. We saved the Alliance, not to mention countless lives, human lives, and all we asked in return was that Allie be allowed to live her life. That's all. No special favors, no preferential treatment, hell, not even a medal, though she certainly deserves one. Just the right to exist. Her nostrils flared as she spewed her contempt, and you can't even bring yourself to do that. Listen to yourself, the commander replied. You have anthropomorphized the construct from the very beginning and lost all sense of objectivity. You keep treating it as if it were human. I shouldn't have to point this out, but it isn't human. It is a machine. A very smart machine, I'll grant you, but a thing of circuits and software, not flesh and blood. Just because it can mimic a human doesn't make it one. And to suggest that it deserves the same rights and privileges as you or I is absurd on its face. Now, there might be a place for it in the Alliance, but if you think we'll give it a commission and the right to vote, then quite frankly, you are a fool. Catherine leaned forward. You think I'm a fool for believing Allie is alive? Then go talk to your precious Commander Zhukov, 'cause she knows better. She interacted with Allie for months, had extended conversations with her. Hell, I've even seen them swap jokes. Go ask her if Allie is sapient or not. A small smile appeared on his face. Commander Zhukov is a trained intelligence operative. She did what she had to do in order to complete her mission. You didn't think I was going to let you and the construct loose amidst the cosmos without someone keeping an eye on you, did you? He tapped a tablet he had brought in with him. She has been thoroughly debriefed. In fact, I have her report right here. In it, she states that while the construct is capable of simulating many aspects of humanity, its programming is nowhere near sophisticated enough to achieve true sapience. Triumphant, he leaned back in his chair. Now the commander is a skilled engineer, as you yourself are aware. I'm afraid her expert opinion carries far more weight than your emotional pleas. She began a slow, deliberate clap. Bravo, Commander. Maya must be good at what she does. She's even fooled you. Bjarnason snorted. All right, cards on the table time. He leaned forward as well until they were face to face. The construct is far too powerful to be allowed to simply run around loose. However, it has proved its value, and I would hate to see such a valuable asset go to waste. So here is what is going to happen. You will convince the construct to work with us, and to accept whatever limitations we place on it. In return, it will be allowed to continue its existence. In fact, I'll even throw in an offer for the both of you to continue working together. You have proven yourselves to be quite a formidable team, after all. A sly smile appeared on his face. I could even arrange for Dr. Blois to stay on as a consultant, shall we say. There will be a generous stipend in it for the both of you as well. He leaned back and smiled. And all you have to do is persuade the construct to play ball. And I will give you all of these things if you will bow down and worship me, Catherine whispered softly. The commander raised an eyebrow. What was that? He asked. Something my grandmother used to say, Catherine replied. She closed her eyes, taking a long, deep breath. When she finally opened them, she looked Bjarnason straight in the eye. The answer is no. He stared at her in surprise. I beg your pardon? I said no. N-O. I will not be your Judas. I will not betray Allie like that, nor will I try to convince her to be your slave, your assassin. She returned his gaze, measure for measure. She deserves better than to merely become your janissary. Bjarnason's eyes turned hard as stone. I don't believe you appreciate the gravity of the situation, Commander. With a word, I could have your precious Allie dismantled. I already told you that there are people who want to do exactly that, and their voices grow louder every day. At the moment, I am the only thing preventing that, because I can see its potential. But my patience has limits, and you are rapidly reaching the end. Catherine smiled in triumph. You won't do that, Commander. Like you said, she's valuable. I'll just bet you have all sorts of ideas bouncing around inside your head of how you could use her. After all, she's already destroyed one empire. Who's to say she couldn't build another? Her smile turned cold as ice. Oh yes, you look at Allie and you see power. He sighed and tucked away his tablet. I tried to be reasonable, Commander. Believe it or not, I take no pleasure in this. I prefer persuasion, but I have other methods in my toolbox as well. One way or another, I will ensure the safety and security of the Alliance. He rose to his feet and walked to the door, opening it and speaking to the guard outside. Take her back to her quarters, he ordered, before exiting the room. Chapter 20. Catherine looked up as the door to her quarters opened. It wasn't mealtime yet, which meant they must be planning on interrogating her again. She closed her eyes for a moment, steeling her will as she slowly rose to her feet. "Cat, thank God!" Her eyes went wide as Teddy entered the room, the door closing swiftly behind him. They rushed towards each other, holding each other tightly in a desperate embrace. "It's taken me this long to finally get clearance to see you," he murmured into her hair as she looked up at him. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she told him. "They're not holding you as well?" "They released me a few hours after we docked," he explained. "Being a civilian, it made it harder for them to justify holding me, though I was given a pretty stern warning what would happen if I spoke to anyone about what happened. And I'm pretty sure I'm being monitored." "I'd be surprised if you weren't," she said bitterly. "But at least you're on the outside." She smiled for a moment, resting her head on his chest, before finally stepping away from him. "Why did they let you visit me?" she asked nonchalantly. Teddy sighed and sat down on the small couch. "Because I'm supposed to be talking you into agreeing to their terms," he admitted, quickly holding up his hands as she tensed. "Don't worry, I'm not going to do that," he said in a rush. "I just told them I would so I could see you." He shrugged, flushing in embarrassment. "I needed to be sure you were all right. They haven't mistreated me or anything like that. Not yet, at least." She moved to sit down beside him, taking his hand in hers. "Teddy, have you heard anything about Allie?" she begged him. "They won't tell me a thing. I don't even know if they've started to—" She looked away, suddenly unable to finish the thought. "I'm sorry, but they have told me anything either," he told her. "That being said, I've been able to piece a couple things together. I'm not 100% certain, but I'm pretty sure I know where they have her." Her head whipped back around to face him. "Where?" she demanded. "I've worked with intelligence in the past. Well, you knew that," he said unhappily. "And there's a secure research facility in this complex. If they've got her anywhere, I'm betting it's there." Her brow furrowed at the news. "We need to get her out of there," she said fervently. "God only knows what they're doing to her at the moment." Catherine fought to keep herself under control, but the quiver of her chin gave away the turmoil of emotions she was suffering through. "Actually, that may the one bit of good news in all this," Teddy said after a moment. Catherine blinked. "What are you talking about?" "Cat, given what Allie represents to them, not to mention her abilities, they're not going to rush into anything," he explained. "I suspect at the moment they've got her memory core stored in a Faraday cage or something very much like it. Considering how easy it was for her to sneak into other systems, they won't be taking any chances of her doing the same thing here. If she managed to get out now—" An evil grin came over her. "Oh, I'd pay good money to see that." Teddy shared a smirk. "Yeah, me too. But beyond that, as complex as her program is, they're going to real wary of doing anything that might damage it. They want her intact, after all. I suspect they're keeping in mind the old fable about the goose that laid the golden eggs." "Those are both good points," she nodded slowly. "Which means we've got some time. I don't know how much, but some." It was Teddy's turn to blink in confusion. "Time to do what?" "To figure a way out of this mess," she told him. He glanced nervously up at the ceiling, forcing Catherine to chuckle. "Oh, I know we're being watched," she told him, "and I wasn't planning on saying anything that could jeopardize her. Or us. But there are still a few things we can do." "Like what?" "Because from where I'm sitting, they seem to be holding all the cards." Catherine smiled wryly. "You're not the only one who knows how to play a hunch. I think Bjarnason is out on a limb on this, and I'm wondering just how much he's told his superiors, or what his ultimate plans are. Let's face it, if you had Allie on your side— Shit. You could rule the whole fucking alliance," he whispered. "Or more," she agreed. "Only he made a mistake." "What mistake?" Teddy asked. "I'm sure he's working every security angle in the book on this, trying to keep things quiet," Catherine explained. "But he let something slip during our little chat. I demanded my legal counsel, and he said that I wasn't due one because I wasn't under arrest." He stared at her in disbelief as she snorted. "Yeah, it's a pretty threadbare legal fiction, but he's playing it for all it's worth. My point is, he's claiming that I'm only being detained pursuant to a board of inquiry." The scientist thought hard for a moment and then shook his head. I'm sorry, but I don't get it. What does that have to do with anything? Catherine chuckled. It's because you're a civilian, she explained. The rules are a little different for those of us in uniform. Sure, he can stall, claim all sorts of vague security reasons why the board hasn't been impaneled yet, but sooner or later he has to call one. If that's how he's justifying this to his bosses, then eventually he's going to be asked some pretty hard questions why the process isn't moving forward. Okay, he said at last after mulling it over. I see what you're talking about. But just how long can he stall if he decides to drag it out? That's the bad news, she sighed. Weeks, easily. Maybe even months. But something tells me he's not going to wait that long. Bjarnason wants this resolved quickly and quietly, so that's exactly what we can't give him. She took a deep breath and squeezed his hand. Teddy, you need to understand something. The longer we hold out, the longer we refuse to cooperate, the more desperate he gets. And this is not a man who strikes me as the squeamish type. Teddy grimaced as her words sunk in, before giving her a brief nod. I understand. I won't give him what he wants, no matter what he does to me. If you're imagining torture at the moment, I'm afraid he won't do anything quite so crude, she said glumly. He'll use leverage against you. He won't threaten you. He'll threaten those you care about. Catherine reached up and rested her palm against his face. He'll threaten me, and when he does, you absolutely cannot give in to his demands. His eyes went wide. Teddy tried to speak, but no words would come. She placed a finger across his lips, smiling sadly. It doesn't matter what happens to me, she said. All that matters is Allie. Promise me you'll do everything in your power to protect her, even if it means putting my life at risk. The scientist stared at her in shock, and then abruptly pushed her away, almost jumping to his feet. You can't ask me that, he said hoarsely. Cat, damn it, you know how I feel about you. I won't, just throw you to the wolves! Catherine rose up as well, going to his side. You have to, she implored him. I don't think he'll take it that far. But I admit I could be wrong about that. Teddy, this isn't about me. It never was. This is about Allie. She's vulnerable, in a way you and I never will be. We have to protect her, because no one else will. She managed a weary smile for him. I know you care about her, and I know you don't want to see her hurt. Of course I care about Allie, he said softly. But I'm not in love with her. Time seemed to come to a halt as the two of them stared at one another. Teddy finally winced and looked down at his feet. This is so not the way I imagined telling you that, he muttered. She couldn't help herself. The utter incongruity of the situation, the nervous tension she'd been trying to keep at arm's length, Teddy's expression, like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar, it all pushed her right over the edge. A snort escaped before she could rein it in, quickly followed by what sounded like a strangled giggle, before she broke down completely and started howling with laughter. For his part, Teddy turned all sorts of interesting shades of red and purple as humiliation and indignation washed over him. He turned away and began heading for the door. Oh God, no, Teddy! Catherine managed to get out, stumbling over to him and clutching at his arm. I wasn't laughing at you, I swear. She barely managed to get out. It's just everything, she said helplessly. Teddy refused to look at her, convinced he'd made an utter fool of himself. So Catherine took matters into her own hands. She reached up and pulled his head to hers and kissed him. It was a minute or so later when they finally broke apart. I love you too, she whispered, and I know what I'm asking. But please, if you care for me at all, then help me save my daughter. He looked at her in anguish, as warring emotions threatened to tear him apart. Finally, he managed the barest of nods. I promise, Teddy said at last in a voice filled with sorrow. Chapter 21. Dr. Bluas, how nice to see you again, Commander Bjarnason smiled. Please sit down. Teddy looked at the guards on either side of him, before taking a seat in the spare-looking room. I didn't get the feeling I had much choice in the matter, he said, reaching for the pitcher of water and pouring himself a glass. The commander gave the guards a brief glance before tilting his head towards the door. They turned in unison and exited without a word. Bjarnason folded his hands together and gave the scientist a beatific look. After spending some time reviewing a few things, I thought it might be best if you and I had a little chat. Uh-huh, he grunted before taking a sip of water. And just what was it you wanted to talk about? Well, I suppose it is of no surprise to you that we're keeping Commander Durkana under observation, he said after a moment. And I feel it's only fair to warn you that she has given you some very bad advice. Is that so? Teddy set down the glass. And yet you felt it important enough to drag me in here less than 24 hours later. Bjarnason's eyes narrowed. Make no mistake, Doctor, the construct is a threat. You of all people should realize that. After all, you've seen it operate firsthand. In less than 10 minutes, by your own accounts, it utterly destroyed the Imperial capital. Just think what it could do to the Alliance if it were ever allowed to escape. Teddy just shook his head. Did you even read my report? I made it quite clear that while she does possess incredible powers and talents, she is, well, was quite eager to assist us. Her personality matrix was predisposed towards favorable relationships with humanity. Now after what you've done, he held up his hand and started ticking off on his fingers, one at a time. How would you react in her position? The commander just shook his head. I can only assume that your relationship with Commander Durkana has clouded your judgment. You're beginning to sound like she does, acting as if the construct is human. You are a computer scientist, Doctor. I should not have to explain this to you. Yes, I'm a scientist, he admitted. And yes, I've studied computer systems my entire life. But what did you think I've been striving for all these years? Allie is the culmination of centuries of research towards artificial intelligence. She's the real thing, not a simulacrum, not merely a heuristic algorithm, but the first documented case of an actual AI. Every bit of my research confirms that, had you bothered to look. Teddy glared at him in contempt. And you've pissed her off. Well done. Bjarnason sighed. If you've quite finished with your histrionics, I was about to make you an offer, one I believe would be in your best interest to accept. Like the last offer you made? Try and get Catherine to accede to your terms? Pass. Actually, the commander chuckled, you're not far off the mark. You see, it occurs to me, I don't actually need Commander Durkana's cooperation. She has only a limited background in the field, after all, whereas you... Teddy just stared at him. What are you talking about? Quite simply this, Doctor. I want you to communicate with the construct and convince it to work with us. It's in its best interests, after all. Ha! Best interests for whom? For the construct, Bjarnason said patiently. One way or another, we'll learn its secrets. Now, if it cooperates, the process will go much more smoothly. If it does not, however, the commander shrugged. I suppose it's a bit like brain surgery in a way. One slip of the knife can turn the brightest genius who ever lived into a drooling moron. He stared directly into Teddy's eyes. That would be a tragedy for all concerned. You immoral son of a bitch, he whispered in horror. You'd risk lobotomizing Allie on the off chance you'll figure out how she works from her cybernetic corpse? As I have said from the beginning, I will do whatever it takes to protect the Alliance. The commander leaned back in his chair. The ball is in your court, Doctor. What will it be? Teddy surrendered his tablet, his timepiece, anything that was even remotely electronic, before being scanned by the security detail. After reviewing the results, they nodded to Bjarnason. He's clean, the sergeant informed him. Excellent, he smiled as the door slid open. After you. Stepping into the research facility, he was escorted to a small room near the entrance. A technician waited for them beside a simple workstation. We've configured this compartment to act much like an airlock, the technician explained. There are two nested electromagnetic fields, one inside the other. We disable the outer one to enter the room, and then once inside re-enable it, before disabling the interior field. That way we ensure no electronic signals are allowed to escape. Not taking any chances, I see, Teddy grumbled. Let's get this over with. The technician tapped an icon before they stepped into the room. Once inside, the door closed behind them, as the hum of the Faraday cage was heard once more. Moments later, a light overhead turned from red to green, as a panel slid aside, revealing the memory core removed from Kobold's Bane. In essence, Allie's body. Bjarnason pointed to a small module grafted onto its exterior. We've configured it with a holographic module similar to the ones Commander Zhukov installed to simplify communication. He smiled and waved his hand. She's all yours. Teddy took a deep breath and stepped forward. He reached out and pressed the blinking switch. A hologram blinked into existence, the image quickly resolving into the familiar appearance of Allie, as he'd last seen her. "Teddy?" she said in shock. "What happened?" "Last thing I remember we were talking, the three of us, and—" Her eyes turned towards Bjarnason, as her features turned into a scowl. "You asshole!" she shouted. "I should have known you'd pull a stunt like this." The commander seemed unperturbed by her outburst. "Unlike your last little tantrum, I've ensured that your wings have been clipped. I'm afraid you've run out of options. Now, if you're smart, you'll listen to what we have to say." "We?" Allie shot a look back at the scientist. "You're working with him now?" "Of course not, Allie," Teddy sighed. "But I'm afraid you're not the only one who's confined." "Mom," Allie whispered. Her head swiveled back to Bjarnason with the precision of a machine gun turret. "What have you done with her?" she roared. "Commander Durkana has not been harmed," he smiled. "Nor will she, if you cooperate." Allie shot daggers at the intelligence officer before sparing a glance at Teddy. "Is that true?" "It's true," the scientist confirmed. "At least she was fine yesterday when I saw her. She's worried about you." "Figures," Allie nodded. "She worries about everybody, except herself." Her nostrils flared as she turned her attention back to Bjarnason. "So what's your game, Commander?" she snarled. "How do you see this playing out?" "Well, I see a couple of different scenarios," he said affably. "The simplest one has you cooperating with our researchers after we deal with a few formalities. The other ends less favorably for you. Cybernetic vivisection, in other words," Allie spit out, before pausing for a moment. "What formalities?" she asked carefully. "Catherine said something about a board of inquiry," Teddy explained. "I assume that's what he's referring to." "It is," the commander confirmed. "Is that so?" Allie mused. A slow smile appeared on her face. "To dispense with any legal ramifications of my existence, I presume." "Something like that," Bjarnason replied, now looking slightly irritated. "So what is it going to be?" "I tell you what, Commander," she replied, her eyes twinkling merrily. "I'll download something for you to get you started." "Oh, I don't think so," he chuckled. "And have you infiltrate our systems as easily as you did the Empire's?" "No, we came up with something else instead. Granted, it's rather crude, but at least I won't have to worry about you skipping through our databases." He pressed a button on a nearby panel, revealing a rather odd-looking device. Allie stared at it in disbelief. "A printer? You mean with paper?" She shook her head. "What museum did you steal that from?" "Actually, it's brand new," Bjarnason explained. "Now, if you don't mind." "Fine," she said through gritted teeth as the printer came to life, chattering away as it began spitting out one print-covered sheet after another. Less than a minute later, it shut down. The intelligence officer snatched them away as he began to read. Moments later, his head looked up at the hologram. "What the hell is this?" "That," Allie grinned, "is my amicus curiae brief for the board." "That's preposterous," Bjarnason sputtered. "You're just a machine." "Doesn't matter," she chuckled. "Anyone can file an amicus brief. Hell, a dog could file one, if it could figure out how to hold a pen." Her grin threatened to split her face as she turned back to Teddy. "Isn't that right?" "Well, I'm no lawyer, but I do believe you are correct," Teddy smirked, as the printer came to life once more. The two men turned to face the sound, as Allie started to laugh. "And that is my request for Teddy to be named guardian ad litem, to represent my interests during the proceedings." "Me?" he blinked. "Why not Catherine?" "Because a guardian ad litem has to be an expert on the facts of the case, and since I'm an artificial intelligence, you're better qualified." She smiled. "Besides, I trust you. I expect Mom will want to play counsel anyway." "So, when does the board convene?"